right now before you're even set up so we can make sure we capture everything you have to say?
Absolutely. I've got a lot to say today.
So where are you standing on the earth being stationary, immovable, created by God, and inescapable?
What are you talking about?
Where do you stand on the idea, which I watched one of the newest documentaries yesterday called Next Level? And it's got some familiar names in there, like the great Eddie Bravo and the great Alex Jones. And it's just the most recent production by this company, Hibbler Productions, about all the proofs that the Earth.
Hitler Productions? Hitler Productions.
Hib with a B, Hibbler.
Hibbtler. Unbelievable, Dave.
No, it's there. It's Hibbler.
I'm listening. I'm just finishing up my setup.
I think it's a Jewish corporation, and
oh yeah, I bet.
So I'll just give you the rundown for me with the whole flat Earth thing because we want to scare away the last listeners. The mother of my child has been a flat earther for many years. And I overlooked it the first year or so because I was like, she's so beautiful. Who cares if she's a moron, right? But once she got pregnant, and around the time where we were considering the next steps of relationship, I was like, I would insult her to the point of tears. I would be a horrible, disgusting human being because I was so triggered and furious that she wouldn't hear me out about how we know through satellites and GPS and through ships over the horizon and how we've known forever that the Earth is round and she's a moron. And I would just go and go and go and go. And she was usually tough about it, but I would just go and go until I broke her. Yeah. Like a real shithead. Fast forward a couple years.
As you should have. You should have criticized her from her very being.
Oh, and I did. And I went hard. And very regretful now because the more I started looking into it to try to prove her wrong, the more I started hearing some things that were making sense to me. And I was like, that is a good question. Because what really got me was the ships. They say that you can see the ship vanishing over the horizon because you see the bottom go away before the top. This is easily disproven. You can disprove it yourself with binoculars. You don't witness the curvature of the Earth at the distance your eyes can see. According to the globalists, they think the Earth is 25,000 miles around at the circumference. For it to be that means there'd be an 8-inch drop per mile squared. Okay? So when you get into distances like 100 miles, you have a very significant drop. Hundreds of feet. But people now with modern cameras and telescopes and lasers and things have found that there is no observable drop, even at distances of 100 miles. So the more I looked into that, I'm like, this is very crazy. I was like, I can't really get over this one. Why can't we observe the curve? And you can't still. And the better technology gets, the more great distances we're able to look across while still realizing, wow, there's no observable curve. I know how crazy it sounds to anybody who's never really entertained the idea. But now after watching, so on my drive to Nashville the other day, I watched the entire 2-hour documentary called 200 Proofs That the Earth is Flat. I only knew about 30 of them. About another 30 are kind of repeating the same thing about how you can see things at distances you shouldn't be able to see. They should be hidden behind the curve. So those parts were kind of boring for me, but the rest of it, I was just blown away by the stars and the parallaxes of stars and the idea that as far as we've ever charted and seen back in history, the stars haven't moved an inch in thousands of years. If we were truly chasing the sun at 5 trillion miles per year, there'd be significant differences in our observation of the stars. That's just simple, very simple, common sense stuff. There's holes cut into stone from 10,000 years ago that still show Polaris in the exact same spot on the exact same day of each year. Impossible if we are chasing the sun at 5 trillion miles per year through the cosmos. It's absurd. So they have to start you when you're really, really young to get into it. That's why before you can even talk, they're showing you globes, and every movie starts out with the globe spinning around for Universal, and everything is globe, globe, globe. And it got me. I mean, I was triggered. Now when someone's like, you're a moron, the Earth's not flat, I'm like, whatever. But back when I was on the other side, if someone would say the Earth was flat, I was like, you're a moron. I was triggered, Very unbecoming. Very unbecoming. Now I realize where my girl has always been. I know something, and it doesn't matter what anyone thinks about it. I've looked into it. I know. And until people can prove these things wrong, if they can make it make sense, like how about the phone conversation with Nixon and then the people allegedly on the moon, right? It was a real-time phone conversation. So somehow 200,000 miles away is what they claim the moon is. They had a real-time phone call. Meanwhile, I still can't get service in my own fucking town, right? But in 1969, there was no lag on the phone call. They just chatting away, and people were so gullible, right? They're like, oh, yeah, that's what happened. No, it's not what happened.
That's a little ridiculous when they had he took like a landline with like a curly, what do they call those? Like a cord, a curly cord, like a
excuse me. Corded phone.
A corded phone, but like, the one grandma had.
Yeah.
Right? Was it a rotary?
He's like, how's Earth look from up there, fellas? Yeah. Like, no problem. I mean, even consider like everything about it. Let's say they were using like radio waves or something. The Earth's still supposed to be spinning. Like, how are you ever going to pinpoint that location? How are you going to? But that documentary I sent you called Next Level, they talk about experiments done in the early 1900s that you don't hear about, where they were sending radio frequencies across the Atlantic, all the way across Europe to Canada. And that's when they realized they weren't trying to prove or disprove the Earth was flat, but they were like, we're getting radio signals across 2,000 miles of flat water. Water always finds its level. That's what it's all about. Water does not curve. It doesn't.
Let me think about this.
It doesn't curve. There's no example of
They're able to send radio signals over the water and that would explain why I lost my drone over the water. It can go like 10 miles over the Atlantic. And I can still have reception, right? So it's very flat in that sense.
Oh, and it's way farther than that. Like modern Navy ships use lasers to target at 100 miles over the ocean. 100
so you're
miles.
telling me that you're saying theoretically, because of the way that the Earth is circular, you got to dumb this down for me. That if my drone is out into the ocean, I shouldn't be receiving a connection because the Earth itself as a ball should be blocking it at some point.
Yeah, but you're not getting close to far enough with a drone. I mean, even 10 miles, it's not even
10
close.
miles is not even close. Okay.
No, even the globalists.
And I guess it depends how high you are too. Like, what if I flew it like 3 feet above water level?
You'd get an extra. They have all these charts, like on Google. Google has a chart that shows you the curvature, right? And people started waking up to this, and YouTube has made a direct campaign against anybody questioning the shape of the Earth. So when you look up flat Earth on YouTube, first you get 200 liars and idiots. You have to dig to find the guys who are actually serious about it, who publish all the really good information. A friend of mine wrote 2 books about all like the biblical history of it. And he did tests himself. But back to my point, I get carried away with this stuff. So
it's good to talk about.
A picture from Michigan across I guess Lake Michigan of the skyline in Chicago, right? So the picture got kind of viral there in the community, and the Chicago News was showing the picture, and they said, hey, what you're seeing here is a mirage. They wanted people to believe it was a mirage, that somehow the bend and the curve and the magic ball was taking the perfect image of the skyline and like projecting it up. Nonsense. The guy didn't know what he was talking about. So he got called out by like everybody who's looked into this forever. And now he's kind of even like, it made me question some things. Like, was I reporting things I didn't understand? Was I being confident about things? Yeah, absolutely. It's not a mirage. What are you, a moron? The other one that really gets me, we talk about it spinning 1,000 miles per hour. That's what they say, 1,000 miles per hour. Yeah. At the equator, you'd feel it so much more intensely than you would at a north or south pole. The difference would be so observable. It'd be like, imagine the spinning basketball. You've got an ant on the basketball. One ant is on the top where it's spinning. One ant,
right, and that one's safe and sound.
Safe and sound. The one in the middle is getting flung to hell and back compared to that ant on the top. But there's no observable difference in anything from the north.
But it's the same speed, right? No?
It's not the same speed. It covers.
How is it not the same speed? Oh, the distance is different. Right. Okay.
The
Okay.
distance
I'm sorry.
is so much greater at the center.
So they're
because it's
covering
spinning on an
more.
axis.
It's just unbelievable. So if I spin a basketball, the fattest part of the basketball is spinning faster than the other parts?
Yes, because it has to cover more distance to get all the way around in one rotation.
And you're going on record. You're going on record.
For a fact, this is simple.
You want to look it up?
Oh, I know for a fact. This is common sense. What's covering more distance? The part at the top doing these tiny little circles, or the part in the middle going all the way around?
I'm not asking what's covering more distance. I'm asking which is traveling. It's traveling faster.
No, they're traveling the same. Oh, well, obviously this one's traveling faster. The one covering more distance in the same amount of time is obviously traveling faster.
I know, but for me, it's hard for my brain to comprehend that. If I'm spinning a basketball, I'm saying it's rotating at the same speed at the fat part and at the small and at the skinnier part. But I don't know. A basketball is not shaped like that, really. A basketball is it's a pretty straight sphere, right?
Yeah. No, think about it. Pretend you're an ant and you're on it. Then you can get a better perspective of what's happening. If you're on the top, you're spinning in these what would feel like quick little circles. If you're in the middle, they're these long circles. They cover the same. One rotation takes the same amount of time. In the middle, in the fat part, it's covering that much. Basically, what you would do is you would measure it. You could measure it with a string and then put that against a measuring stick and see how far it is. The center of a basketball is probably like 30 inches in circumference or something, maybe more. The top is
There's only one way.
How are you going to try to Google that question? Would an ant be spinning faster in the center of a basketball than at the top?
Of course, we're not going to say an ant. We're going to
go the ant
right.
example, and I think you should stick with it. A lot of our 190 IQ listeners like the ant analogy.
Does a basketball spin faster in the wide part versus the smaller part?
Oh my God, look at this guy. You can just, with your own mind, you should be able to understand this, but you don't, and that's fine.
Oh, good. No, now you're insulting me.
Yes.
Now you're insulting me. That's a good start to the podcast.
Yeah. Well, the last one it started out, you said, well, first of all, fuck you.
I don't know. I started it off with, first of all, fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a funny podcast.
It's payback, baby.
Okay. I mean, I want you to be right. Let's just put it that way. But I need somebody else to explain it to me.
This is simple. You think at the thick part, which is traveling the same, it takes the same amount of time for one rotation, no matter where you are on that basketball. If you're in the thick part, you're traveling much farther distance than you are if you're standing on the top. Even the global people admit this. And Neil deGrasse Tyson had the nerve to be like, actually, if you're on the equator, your weight is 7 pounds different than elsewhere in the north or south hemisphere. Endless nonsense, endless lies, endless gaslighting from the great Neil deGrasse
Earth rotates faster. Okay. According to God, aka Google, it says Earth rotates faster at the equator than it does at the poles. Earth is wider at the equator. So leave room for God to talk, please. So to make rotation in one 24-hour period, equatorial regions race nearly 1,000 miles per hour near the poles. Earth rotates at a sluggish, look at this. It's a very slow, 0.00008 miles per hour. Let's look at this. It's called the Coriolis effect.
But I love there's no measurable difference. Like you can go, like pilots when they're flying. Let's say they're flying from Chile.
It never made sense when they try to explain that. It's never made sense for me. I'm not a 160 IQ of our listeners are. But when the Earth's supposed to be spinning east, why is my computer so slow? Is it because we're streaming? I have a ridiculous internet connection. Why is it doing this?
I don't know. I hope we're capturing everything that you're doing and saying because you're looking fantastic with your new haircut.
I feel so much better with this new haircut, by the way. Thank you for everything. So, look at us. Look at me. I'm somewhere between 6th and 12th grade. Oh, look at this. The government's monitoring us. The Coriolis effect describes the pattern of deflection taken by objects not firmly connected to the ground. Here we go. Here we go. As they travel long distances around the Earth. What the fuck are they talking about? Why does the Earth rotate faster at the equator? Because it's covering more. I kind of get that. It's covering more ground at the equator. But it's just crazy to me that the same object could be traveling at different speeds. But that's just, I guess that's just science for you. They don't want us to look any of this up.
So think about this. So when you get into that point, it has to cover more distance at the center of whatever's spinning. So you're telling me you wouldn't feel the difference between spinning 1,000 miles per hour or spinning 1 mile per hour? You wouldn't feel that difference? Like human beings, like you're on a plane. You're on a plane traveling north from Florida. You're going to Canada. Even far, you're going to northern Canada. You're not going to feel, and the pilots aren't going to account. Keep in mind also, pilots never, under any circumstance, account for the rotation of the Earth. You'd think at 1,000 miles per hour spinning at the equator, it might be something you have to consider. They try to cover, they say, well, the atmosphere is spinning right along with it. Nonsense.
This is from New Scientist, so it sounds like you don't believe in science. There's a picture of a globe. There's a picture of a globe, which is the one that we've seen since childbirth, and the one your mother's seen, the one that your grandmother's seen.
The one that was photoshopped.
This is
copies.
This is a manipulated image. Why?
Well, they admit.
Let's talk about motivation.
Oh, why?
Well, yeah, because because it's electronically transferred from space to here, so they call that manipulated.
No. It's literally
talk to me.
It's all cut and pasted. There's not one actual photo of the fucking Earth from space. Not one. The guy from NASA even admits the blue marble.
Photo.
He even admits he made it up. He goes, it's a composite, but it has to be. Those are his exact words. They take sliver images from the highest orbiting things we can get. I won't even say orbiting, from the highest cameras we can get, and they composite them to the best of their ability to try to recreate what it might look like. They don't teach you this in school, but it's just true. You got to look into it.
Real photos of the yes, according to the Microsoft network. Real photos of the Earth. The first photo showing the entire Earth was taken in 1966 from the spacecraft Lunar October Orbiter 1. Since then, there are too many photos. Too many. We have too many of them showing the whole Earth taken from various missions to space. And you say to me that this Earth isn't round. We have photos of it.
No, we
have
don't.
Photos.
We don't. You know who has photos of it? NASA. NASA was founded by a literal fucking Nazi, partnered with a witchcraft practicing high Satanist. Like, it's nonsense.
Nazi genius.
The only
Nazi genius.
The only point of NASA and all
calling him a Nazi is belittling what he really is. He's a Nazi genius.
What's genius?
He's morally on the wrong side of history.
A way to dupe the entire Earth into thinking there is no God. They're not special.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be pretty genius, though? I mean, even in your wacky vision of the world, that's kind of ingenious.
Like he's an evil
Some
genius?
flat earthers insist that there's not one real photo of the entire Earth taken in a single frame. Funny enough, I have someone I'm talking to right now that believes that. That is not a result of image manipulation, not a composite of many pictures and not computer generated. They are wrong. There are many real photos of the entire Earth taken in a single frame. 1996, we learned about the Lunar Orbiter 1. 1968, Apollo 8. 1972, Apollo 17. 2014, from FT1.
Those pictures are so funny too, because Neil deGrasse Tyson just a few years back started saying, well, it's not a sphere. It's an oblate spheroid. He said it's more pear-shaped. They found out it's actually more pear-shaped. They're going to have to keep changing their definitions as our technology, civilian technology, gets better to keep proving them to be completely wrong. I mean, they're not wrong. They're lying.
The advent of computers in the 80s introduced a new technique of generating such pictures. A satellite can be used to take many photos, and that's the composite you're speaking of the Earth from a low orbit, and computers can be used to assemble these pictures into a single photo of Earth. But before that, in 1966, they weren't using that technology. and that's what the Earth looks like.
Don't you love how when those guys, when they went to the moon and they played golf on the moon, they took that phone call and they talked in real time from 200,000 miles away to the president with no interruption? Don't you love that they never thought to turn their camera to the moon? And all their filming of jumping up and down and riding the dune buggy and playing golf, they never just turned their camera from the moon to the Earth. Why? Too hard to fake. We are so far advanced in technology since 1969 that now they know, like, damn, we can't even fake it now because everyone's too good at everything. Like, the average guy knows more about Photoshop than the top NASA dude knew in the 60s. Like, now we can spot a fake, so they don't mess with it anymore. And they control the narrative. It's really only about controlling the narrative.
Oh, what's this? What's this? This proves you right here. In February 1971, Alan Shepard became the first person to play golf in space. How fun. On February 6, 1971, astronaut Alan Shepard hit a golf ball on the moon, the first person to take the game to the stars.
I can't believe anyone believe this shit.
Golfers go to great lengths to play, but no man has gone farther than Shepard, who trekked to the moon in 1971. Let's click on this image because in the background it shows Earth. Let's take a look.
No, it doesn't.
What is this? What is this sphere? Floating sphere?
Oh, you're talking about that picture?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a crock of shit, dude. And think about, like, so the moon, look how it looks under their feet. It's almost dark, right? Yet it's this glowing, crazy orb in the sky that lights up our entire world during a full moon. And you can see from the direction that the Earth is there, the way it's getting hit by the light, they should be getting hit by a similar light source. And if it looks anything like it looks to me sitting here on Earth observing the moon, that shit would be blinding. Underneath their feet, it'd be like, pow.
I love this, Dave. This is something you bring up often. If we are traveling so fast through space, why can't we feel it? Simply put, as Earth is spinning at a constant speed, so does everything on it. Traveling at the same speed means we cannot feel the spin. It's like driving a car. Even though you're moving, you aren't aware of the speed because it's constant. Only when you change speeds do you notice you are traveling. Like putting your foot on the accelerator or making an emergency
easiest one to disprove.
stop.
People use that argument. They say, do you feel it when you're in an airplane? Well, for one, yes, you do. But for two, try being in an airplane without the fuselage. Try being on the wing of an airplane and see if you don't feel it. And that's 500 miles per hour, not 1,000.
That's interesting. But remember, the atmosphere travels with us.
Such nonsense.
If we're not, when you're in an airplane, you're traveling through the atmosphere. When you are on the ground and you're not traveling at 400 knots, you are traveling with the atmosphere, so you're not being hit by the wind.
This is something you can understand. Anyone can understand this if it's explained to them properly. The atmosphere they claim is traveling.
By the way, look at the photo. Look at this photo.
What is it?
It was definitely a fake photo that includes the Earth in the background. It's a guy in a suit playing golf on the moon. It looks really silly. Really silly.
I'm surprised they didn't try to pitch that one to you. Anyway. So let's say the atmosphere is really a thing that's moving along with the spin of the Earth, right? Because the magical gravity keeps it in place. As you get higher in the atmosphere, would there not be a noticeable difference in the spin? Because guys will go up in a hot air balloon. You know, they've gone up 100,000 feet. And when they drop, hours and hours later, they're like 7 miles from where they took off. If the Earth is spinning in a 24-hour cycle all the way around and several hours at that height.
So you're asking that question now.
I'm asking
it's the same thing as the airplanes, right? Like when you're traveling at 30,000 feet, why doesn't the
Why don't
Earth
they have to account for the
spin
curvature
under an aircraft?
Hold on, let me take care of my baby real quick. You keep going, and if she gets too out of control, we'll have to do a quick pause.
No doubt. We need to do it anyway because I have to restart my modem. I don't know what's going on with this. Really slow modem. But as Ben was saying, and he's a nice guy. No, first of all, Ben, very smart individual before you guys get on here and start judging him. One of the smartest, almost the smartest person I know. And what happens is these people need to entertain something in their mind because that's their creative vision. And for Ben, he's exploring a subject, and to him that helps as a hyperactive, somebody might label him an ADHD type. He's definitely a high thinker. I'm not mad at somebody who challenges what we know. I actually love those people. So I'm having fun doing this. Am I disproving him? Not really. I mean, I'm looking at an MSM-sponsored website called New Scientist. I mean, what we need to establish is a motive. I mean, why would they really want us to not know the truth about the shape of the Earth?
Let's talk motive. I'll give you the
really can a civilian – well, the motive is one thing. We have more questions about it too, but let's start motive. Why
motive is always one people go to it, and that's a good question. Number one is
why
they don't
would thousands of people in NASA all lie?
No, it's not thousands that are lying. That's like saying that thousands of people were involved in taking down, Tower 7 at the World Trade Center. It's very small groups of people, right? It's very compartmentalized. Most people in NASA are doing real work. They're really figuring.
These are the global elite. These are the global elite. These people. I'm
talking about the people at the top of the company for sure know that they're lying to the masses, and they're making so much money. Okay, let's get back to
say that does the president. Let's go back to motive. But does the president of the United States know the Earth's flat?
Biden, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't know.
How about Trump?
Obama knows for sure.
Presidents aren't privy to the real shape. They continue to fund NASA, but they're lying to the president. I mean, I could see that being the case.
I don't think the president has to know anything. He's a puppet, and all of them have been. So no motive. Right. They don't want you to know about God. They don't want you to believe that you were created just like how the Bible says, or how
Why
so
not?
many.
Wouldn't that be such a great thing for society? Because if you read the Bible, it really outlines the way people should behave in a constructive way to society.
You're thinking that the globalists want a good society. The globalists want Agenda 2030. The globalists want. Oh, is that us on the big screen? How did you make us on the big screen? The globalists want us godless. They want us living in fear. They want us compliant. They want us stupid. And that's everything they push. Since Rockefeller took over the education system in the early 1900s, it's been all downhill from there. People are dumber now than they've ever been in the history of time. And you can observe that. Just have a look at the pyramids. We can't do that shit today, man. And we're so
just
smart.
Think about what Nas said. Just think about Nas said. Rockefeller died of AIDS. That was the end of his chapter. And that's the guy you chose to name your company after?
Wow. I don't know about this Nas song, but it sounds really exciting, something I'd have to look into. So back to motive. Number one is it separates you from God and the Creator. Because when you're born, I feel like as you grow, the connection would be so obvious. You look around at the butterflies floating around and the trees blooming with the seasons, and you observe that you're stationary. It's quite obvious to every person who hasn't been indoctrinated that we're stationary on this magical, magical plane, right? 2, the motive is hidden land, hidden resources. If they can convince the average moron that we've already explored the world has already been explored. There's nothing left to be found. They can hide whatever they want from us because here we are running in circles on this little globe. Meanwhile, they probably have crazy bases just southwest of Antarctica that are like gorgeous, sun shining, 45 hours a day, not just penguins, but like dolphins.
Well, we haven't even gotten into weather and how the weather is affected by where you're located on the globe and its angle to the sun, seasons. We haven't even gotten into that.
Because I'm not the expert on that, but I've watched enough videos of people that they can explain every last detail of it. So what I would recommend for anybody who's interested, watch 200 proofs the Earth is flat on BitChute by Eric Dubai, and then watch the newest one that came out, Next Level. And I mean, if you get through watching all that and you're like, nah, I don't know, then I bid you good luck.
Now, Dave, was there a time where you believed that the Earth was a globe?
Yeah, my entire life until like a year ago. And what's funny, as soon as I started questioning it, I wasn't sure about it until like a week ago. But when I started questioning it, I kept finding all these people who were like, "Oh, the shit's flat, man." I'm like, "Yeah, really? You think so?" They're like, "I know so."
When you read the government pieces in retaliation, like for example, don't they have a whole society that's meant to dupe people who look into flat Earth?
Yeah,
it's called the floating disk theory.
the Flat Earth
Yeah.
Society is the ones that push all like the most ridiculous aspects of Flat Earth, because people think Flat Earth is like a disk in the universe, but no, it's removed from the solar system as we've had it explained to us entirely. It has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, a history teacher, a professor that I work with, very smart guy, PhD guy.
I got this baby real quick, I think.
No problem. But when I tell him, and we're going to take a break, but if you can still hear me,
I can hear you.
He probably represents a lot of America. When you drop Flat Earth, he goes, "Oh, that's insane." But and everything shut down. And I don't think people should be like that. I love the guy, but that represents the majority of Americans, the majority of the people around the world. I think they think you're just right off the bat insane. If I brought my son in here and asked him, "What do you think about the flat Earth theory?" He'd be like, "What? In science class we were just looking at a globe."
Isn't it funny too, when you're like that age, you think you're so smart. When you're like 8, 9, 10, 11, you think you're the smartest. Then when you become 30, you're like, oh shit, I don't know anything.
Yeah, when you're like 27, that's when it starts dawning on you that you're. What's the appropriate word for retard now?
Retard, I think, still the one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I don't know anything, and I love people who are curious, and I entertain this because, number one, there are some things you're saying where you're onto something. Our math isn't right about the curvature of the Earth. Done. Our math isn't correct. There's so much magical that science can't explain about Earth. Earlier today, you lost a lot of people because you ramble so quickly sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think 70% of our audience are still reflecting on something. You're talking about Lake Michigan and how you shouldn't see Detroit from a certain thing. I believe what you were saying is that from a far enough distance, according to the math of the globalists, is what you call them, the engineers and the scientists who are the leaders of their fields, the math they came up said the Earth slopes at a certain distance. So when you're in Montreal, you shouldn't be able to get a clear view of Detroit, something like that. And it's not Montreal. It's what's the other, Toronto, right? So, but you see people using these lenses, and they disprove that pretty honestly. They go, no, look, by the way, we can see the entire structure from the first floor all the way to the top. And if it was true to the image of what the scientists have told us, we should only be able to see from like maybe the 12th floor up. But we're seeing the lobby of these hotels from 100 miles away.
Shouldn't be able to see any of it. If the model, they wrote themselves into a corner when they said it was 25,000 miles around, because they've already put into account how far across the Atlantic it is and how far across each continent it is. So it's already written in at 25,000 miles. They can't change that now, right? So now as our technology is getting better, we're starting to see if it were to be a sphere, which doesn't make any sense, but if it were to be a sphere, it'd have to be significantly bigger than what they've said, like maybe 10 to 20 times the size.
And if that's the case, they were off in a major freaky way. Big off.
Lying.
And you say they're lying, and the motivation to me, the fact that they don't want us to feel like God has an influence on our lives, they want us to be insignificant. I'm not going to call it crazy, because that could be a motive for them withholding such vital information about our surroundings. And you said also it has to do with them hiding land.
Yeah.
Land is certainly a resource for resources, oil, and there could be a lot of motivation to hide some land. They do hide land, but with modern day satellites, the people are getting better at examining the Earth. You
think Google Earth is going to give you an honest rundown?
No, Google Earth is a product of the government, right? So you're not seeing. You might see the neighborhood that you were born in. You can explore, the town of, in Virginia or in certain places in Delaware. But even if you go to look at, especially military bases and things like that, you're not seeing. I mean, sometimes it's just completely covered up, or you're seeing a photo from the 1970s.
We're going to have to just accept our followers are going to end up being only the most radicalized. Normal people aren't going to follow us. And that's okay.
Well, they are, maybe because of my voice, because
you're just like Joe Rogan. You're good at pretending not to agree. My screen shows your face is frozen. Is my face frozen on your screen?
No, you're doing great, but for a while your face was frozen. So we'll have to.
I wonder if it's recording that way or if it just appears that way on our computers.
It's just receiving that way on the computers because I started manipulating your photo and you popped right back on. And you
People always say to me, they say, "Oh, so if the Earth's flat, then how do you explain computers?"
What?
They're like, if the Earth's flat, how in the fuck do you explain computers?
What am I missing?
I'm just giving an example of the bad examples that you might hear once you start accepting that the Earth's. Look, want to hear the baby play the piano?
Sure.
It's not great, but she's like very young.
Now, are you manipulating her fingers?
I'm just moving her butt, and her hands are on it. She loves it.
I can't believe there's going to be a junior you out there in a matter of no time. She's going to be old. She's going to be questioning the world around her. She's probably going to be a podcaster. And I just hope that she has the ability to learn things in this world.
Well, we're going to tell her, like, hey, baby, the people on TV starting around the 1940s, they taught flat Earth until like 1940, and all the almanacs before that said the Earth was stationary.
It certainly feels stationary to me. There's a couple of your points that I have to argue just to have a counterpoint, but boy, does it feel stationary. And my very first argument was just like everybody else's, the same as the atmosphere argument. I said, Ben, if we've been spinning it, and what's the exact – what do they say we spin at?
1,000 miles per hour at the center.
Okay. It doesn't feel that way. And my favorite thing you say is – and call me, and they're going to come at us in the forums. Our high IQ people are going to come kill us. But my favorite of all of the arguments of every single one of them is show me a ball where water can be attached to it
and it can spin
without some type of container system.
Yeah.
I do reflect on some of those images of that famous astronaut who was included in a lot of he did a lot of educational work, and he would show you what water looks like in the International Space Station, which you agree exists and is real, right? The International Space Station.
No.
Okay. I was born into a family who are a family of engineers, and I can tell this to my listeners, and they built a lot of the equipment used in space. Millions and billions of dollars in contracts went to them so that they could fabricate materials for the wires. The Mars rover, for example, the wires are encapsulated within this special breathable material, which also protect it from the atrocities of the sun, and water, and any possible other thing that might be able to come. The spacesuits, many of them were designed with help from a family private company. Ben says, Ben, what's your response to that? I mean, I could find
it's compartmentalized. I think a lot of what they build and do, I think they use for things for sure, but they're not using it for outer space missions. They might be using it for like deep water diving explorations.
How about this? They might be using it for war.
War. I think a lot of money laundering is going on, obviously, with all the tax money going NASA's direction. Kind of like what's happening in Ukraine, a lot of laundering happening.
I know. I mean, yeah, okay.
The government's been known to launder. Can we come back in 5 minutes after I get her a nice bottle?
No doubt. I need a nice bottle myself.
All right, here we go. Bottles for everybody.
See you a bit.
God bless you. It's not a real story, okay? Unless it's about Nick Lachey, I can already tell you I'm going to call bullshit on this story.
Remember when that one dude was like, I listened to the podcast, but I can't ever get 2 minutes in because you guys are so fucking boring?
Yeah. And now I followed him.
Does he ever make you rethink your life? Does he ever make you rethink things or no?
Sure.
He always makes.
No, he made it very
clear. My feelings, I think.
We're not as good as we wish that we were, and that's fine.
What's the secret to being successful on here? What do we got to do? Stand up with our cocks out? I'm willing to do anything, but sign a pact with the devil. What do I have to do?
I think we have to do this first.
Sit here and talk about massaging penises all day, and we have no viewers ever. How hard is it? It's hard.
Sometimes we actually do have a lot of viewers, so we have to be careful.
50,000 once.
250,000. So
No way, was it 200? No, it was 50,000. Are you saying that it could have been more than that?
it's like 1 million. There's really no way to track these numbers.
Do you hear me breathing too deeply through my nose? I think I have a heart problem. So can I tell you about can I tell you about something that,
You've
go
been
ahead.
doing shots, I can already tell. So this is gonna be one of those episodes where we have to go back and erase everything that you said.
There we go again. No, I haven't, but I have been drinking a giant bottle of whiskey. But I'm not. It doesn't mean that I'm not able to speak the truth. It means I'm speaking way more truth than any of us can handle.
Well, yeah, but
So I want.
can't handle the truth, so we gotta find a way to tone you back to like I mean, I've drank a lot of gin myself. This is the problem with you and me. We can't do morning podcasts because we're too sober.
Right.
And you're at work a lot too. We can't do evening podcasts because we're too drunk. We can't do middle of the day podcasts because
Right.
we're doing like that's the time of day we do things. We have things to do.
Right. That is true.
So it's tough. We're so behind on our podcasting. I mean, do we have anything interesting to say ever anymore?
Friday, I did something that's you might call despicable.
Okay.
But it was honest, and I want to share it right here, right now.
Okay.
Right. Thursday, I went downstairs. I brought my keys downstairs. And when I say key, I mean keys, plural, 2 keys. I brought the key to my Honda Accord and a key to my Volkswagen SUV. My wife drives the Volkswagen SUV because I decided that it was safer. And let's be honest, Latinas don't know how to drive.
Latina women, especially.
They put themselves at risk, and the men too, with the wheels on their Honda Civics that sit out like.
So you think the horrible like design choices they make, the aftermarket expensive choices too, reflect on it's kind of like what's the word? It's like they're portraying their inner driver onto their car, and it's ridiculous, right?
I'm sure they're fine.
I'm sure they're fine as people, but as drivers, something's off.
Yeah, when the wheels are pointed out at the street, like the wheels are sometimes like this. Look, we're not going to get into it. Let me tell you what really happened.
Well, hold on.
So,
you sidetracked. I got to sidetrack one thing quick because you just reminded me of my gang stalkers revealed themselves yesterday, the day before. You ever heard of gang stalking? It's a conspiracy theory where some random people say that they're being followed. Like my father would kind of be one of these, being followed by mobs of people, right? Like it's like paranoia, where you think like people are following you and stuff. It's actually been proven to happen. Like maybe it's mind experiments the CIA does. They'll just like have people follow random people, and like they'll be noticeably following them. So it makes people go crazy and shit. I was at the gas station in a Honda Civic, kind of like the designs you're talking about, so tinted out I couldn't see through the windshield. I couldn't see who was in there.
okay.
I'm at the gas pump talking to Scotty on the phone. They pull up in front of me. There's other pumps available. So I'm not even thinking about anything. I'm like, I'm going to get some gas, maybe, maybe not. I always pump at the gas pump because it's just the easiest parking spot. I'm going to walk in. I'm going to be in and out. But I'm sitting there, and the car is just sitting there looking at me like 10 yards in front of me. And I finally am like, I finally get out of the car. As soon as I get out of the car, they speed off in the parking lot so forcefully, they're throwing gravel at me, go right by me. They go a yard away from me and spit out. And I'm furious. For some reason, it really triggered me. And I'm thinking, I got my gun right here. I hope they come back and try. Because I'm paranoid now that I've been shot up. Now that my house has been shot up, I'm paranoid. So I've always got the gun. I'm always ready. But I started thinking like that night, I'm like, do I have gang stalkers? Is the CIA like stalking me and harassing me and trying to make me go crazy? Anyway, back to your story.
No, who knows what you have, or if that was just a crazy coincidence. That's the other excuse for it.
I think it was a coincidence. I think someone was probably in a fight with somebody, and they were
right.
And the timing, they got really mad, and right as I got out, they happened to be the same time as they got in a fight, and they were like, oh,
Right. Or it could be like a mistake. Like, oh, he was driving a red Volkswagen and like you got some gangsters following you and they're like, that's not the fucking guy. Like he's not involved. He's a musician and he's on InfoWars.
As
He
soon as
has
they saw my shirt, they knew like this guy's not the threat.
right. Right, exactly. Oh my God, by the way, we have a couple people joining us right now. I have a New York City cop who cannot wait to get back on. My dad is returning a call. And Brittany is interested in your boat, the boat that you want. That's for sale. The one that's in my spot for several months that hasn't paid. She's sending me a message saying, "Hey, by the way, if it's not claimed, I want first dibs." But little does she know that I have a little Virginia friend who gets first dibs on it. Why is my face so red?
Little does she know you're going to keep the damn boat and we're going to sink it. What is she thick? Who is this girl? We're going to take the boat out.
When you say is she thick, you're saying she's small-minded or she's thick in the brain membrane?
Yeah. How does she not know what's going to happen? You're going to inherit the boat, okay, through the legal process.
I hope so. Boy,
we're going to get on that boat. We're going to bring 3 gallons of whiskey, okay? We're going to head east until the boat stops working, and that's it.
We're going to crash into Delaware.
Well, she thinks that you're desperate.
We're going up the chop tank.
Well, she want to give you $7,000 for it. How about instead we have the adventure of a lifetime? We get taken out by cannon fire. How about that? How about save your $7,000, Brittany, or whoever the hell you are, buy someone else's boat because this boat's getting sunk somewhere in the Atlantic.
She's a good woman, and if we can do it without releasing too much fuel, it would be beneficial to the reef system there. I really do believe there's artificial reefs.
Reefs are great. You know, I was doing a little bit of math the other day in my head about our upcoming trip and some of your fears, and I thought they talk about how quick it is to sail. I mean, to motor sail if you want to go that route. If there's not enough wind, the wind's not in your favor.
Like 7 days or something.
Yeah, 7 days tops. They do it in 3 days at even 7, 8 knots. Get this. Guess how much it would cost
here.
At current gas prices. Guess what it would cost to motor to Florida? I did the math.
Well, it's a 20-gallon tank. 20 times 4, we all know 20 times 5 is $100. It costs $400.
$250 all the way there.
Yeah. That's with a working motor.
Well, we have working. Good news is we have a working motor. We have a tank. We have one of the old Westerbeeks, one of the greatest. Some call them motors, some call them engines. I get confused which is which.
You'd have to get a really good mechanic on here to be able to disseminate. They're the same things. I think we're calling motors and engines. It's the same thing. They're combustion pieces of manufacturing, and they have cylinders, and those doors go up and down based on combustion.
No, you know what? Some motors don't have combustion.
Yeah, Elon Musk. There might be some other ways around it, I'm sure, but
maybe engine means it has to have combustion. Motor means it moves something without necessarily having combustion.
It's a motor in my world of not knowing anything about motors is the same thing as an engine, but a different word for it.
No, it's not the same.
You're a fucking idiot. Let me look it up.
If I end up being right on this, you have to admit that the Earth is possibly not round.
That would be a ridiculous thing to say. I don't know how to look it up. So let me see. Motors.
Just Google and say difference between engine and motor. And it might just be some Virginia boy slang, but I know people call some things motors, some things engine.
A lot of things are Virginia boy slang, for the record. Are we recording this?
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah, you're on fire.
All right, so it's motor.
You look handsome as hell with your new haircut. I can't get over it.
I feel so much better with this. I didn't feel like myself without the haircut. Thank you for saying.
Now, you looked like a child molester, and now you look like a cool-ass guy.
No, I look like Tucker.
Yeah. No, you look rugged, dude. I'm crushing on your ass.
Oh, for real? It's a nice look?
Oh, my God.
I feel very good about it. I'm going to get that AK that we were looking at today at the pawn shop.
Yep. You get an AK with that haircut, you were going to be on a couple lists.
Boy, I'll tell you what. I still have the fastest connection I've ever seen on a computer. My ping when I play, this is going to make me not rugged very quickly, is 4. Nobody has a ping of 4. Ping start at about 30 and go to, I don't know, 3,000, depending on how poor your connection is. If you have a good 5G connection, your ping might show 60.
But are you still unable to connect to Google, you're saying, with all that
No,
ping?
I'm just saying everything's so slow. I think all my kids are watching porn simultaneously.
Well, they are Gen Z or whatever it's called.
The main difference between a motor and an engine is that a motor converts electrical energy into mechanical energy, while the engine converts other forms of energy like chemical, heat, steam, and the mechanical power. The other differences between the two devices lie in their structure, working principles, and arrangement of their components.
I knew it, dude. So it's not. So, okay, the guy who works on my bus, he doesn't work on my bus. Apparently, he got hooked on meth, and that's why he hasn't worked on my bus in 3 years, and it's sitting there in his yard, and we have to go get it.
He was the one who knew the difference between the two.
No, he always called it a motor. I'll fix your motor. I'm gonna fix your motor, and I'm always like, motor? Why are you calling it motor? Because to me, something was off about that. I guess now we know.
But they're used. If we can Google this next.
People often use them
interchangeably, right? Let's be honest.
People are often doing things like this, like when the road gets dark while you search and you can no longer see, let my love throw a spark, baby, and have a little faith in me. And when your cigarette hot, it cannot beat so easily. Come here, darling, from a whisper start, and have a little faith in me. The world is fucking flat, it is. 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 So what'd you find?
That the motor is different than the engine. The motor is more affiliated with an electric engine, and the engine seems to be run more mechanically.
Makes sense to me. So you do have an engine on that damn thing. It's a diesel engine, but a lot of people do call it motor. I think it's an old country thing, honestly, like country boy kind of shit. That's all I can figure.
Well, I have to get a new drink, but I have lots to talk about you about your lies and about a lot of things that you've been getting into recently, where you've been lying to people and lying to their customers and lying about going to Tennessee and lying about doing a grass cutting for $200. You've been lying about the weather. You've been lying about the miles you've made. You've been lying about your daughter. And you've been lying about a lot more. So I want to get into this, but let me make a drink.
Here's a quick picture of me in Tennessee mowing 4 acres.
And let me guess, the earth was not flat when you did that.
I'm on a zero turn. There were a couple hills, but I would say overall it's still very much flat. So
liar!
I'm afraid it's flat. You know what we could do while you're gone? I could share some screens and we could watch a little bit of Flat Earth clips. We could watch some of the ones that got me thinking. Are we going to lose all? Who cares? Like, okay, here's my thing. If we lose all of our 200 IQ millionaire listeners, we can get new listeners who are open-minded. We don't need these rich schmucks kind of telling us how to run our own thing. We can do this on our own. And yeah, we don't need the haters. We're going to go the direction that we go. And if they want to stay on board, they can stay on board.
It's hard for a lot of people to stay on board with you because of your outright lies. But we will meet back here in about 2 minutes.
Well, I'm going to stay on. I'm going to stay on. And I'm going to play some of these clips.
I don't want to. Oh, you want to do it when I'm not here because you can get away with it.
No,
go ahead.
Going to do
You can do a collage. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm going to show some stuff.
Yeah, show it while I'm not here so I can't tell the people what's real.
All right. Well.
Unbelievable, this Ben Laurentiis.
Okay. Okay. So hopefully I can remain entertaining without having him to bounce back and forth off of. So again, when you're searching on YouTube, it makes it a million times harder to find whatever you're looking for, because they're going to go ahead and stifle you. They're going to stifle free speech. They're going to stifle new ideas, much like how they've stifled our podcast. We got shadow banned so hard. I remember after they gave us our first strike for suggesting that the COVID vaccine was ineffective at best, we were the 110th search result for the Radicalized podcast in Google. If that doesn't teach you something about the way the algorithms work and the way the system favors anything mainstream narrative, is going to be favored. Anything counter narrative is going to be shadow banned, hidden, covered up, banned, striked. And we're up against that within platforms like YouTube, which is sad because this is the platform that everyone uses. But luckily we're now on Rumble. We're getting on Odyssey. We're on BitChute. So we're making sure that once we get banned here pretty soon, because we have the inside scoop on Amber Heard, the true story with Johnny Depp and Amber. And once we release all that, I don't plan on them ever letting us back on. So I'm going to try to Google while I talk. Nikon P1000 is the camera that's caused a lot of trouble to the scientists debunking flat Earth. I love how they talk about flat Earth like people think that it's a disc in space with water falling off the edges. I'm going to have to change platforms to even talk about this with everybody if I want to have some kind of video examples. We're going over to BitChute. If you guys have never used BitChute, it's like the open source version of YouTube. You can say anything, you can do anything within reason. There's no pornography, there's no hate speech. But they take hate speech seriously, like they don't call everything hate speech, for example. It has to actually be hateful to be banned on the old BitChute. So let's see. All right, here's what we're going to do, Mitch, because we talked flat Earth today. That was the thing. We're going to still...
We barely got there. I have a lot more to talk about, and I'd love to discuss it, but I know that you're private about it. You don't necessarily want to answer all my questions.
Not a spinning ball.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to scan through here. I'm going to share the screen. We're going to play a couple of these. We ready for that?
I guess.
Is that something we can do?
I want to talk about your child. Did you vaccinate her?
Of course
at
not.
all?
No, she's
polio.
No, she's a free. Of course not polio. What a bunch of nonsense. Let's hear what this guy's got to say. Let's.
1. The horizon always appears perfectly flat, 360 degrees around the observer, regardless.
Share the video, Ben. We want to see the video, not us drinking.
What do you mean? I did share the video.
No, I'm looking at your beautiful red beard. I want to see the video.
It says that I'm sharing it, so you're looking at my red beard, but it's being shared to the world.
You got to click share screen.
I already did.
Make sure it's selecting your screen.
Oh, it is. It's on the video.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Plane and drone footage show completely.
Try share screen again. No, it's not.
Miles high.
You can't hear or see that.
No, I'm just looking at your face.
Okay, well, you're doing something wrong. So I'm going to do it again. I'm doing it perfectly. Start sharing. It's sharing. See that?
I'm going to all my different views. Here's the one where we're in the Aztec forest together.
Try going to the right view and you'll be able to see all this. You work on that while I play this for the 180 IQ millionaires.
Space agencies show curvature in their fake CGI photos and videos. 2. The horizon always rises to the eye
Are
level
you seeing it?
as altitude is gained.
And
Yeah,
when you hit share screen, are you hitting that little button at the bottom that says share computer sound and share window?
Not only that, I'm sharing the exact window that I need to be shared, and it's highlighted in red. It's being shared.
Why can't I see it then?
Maybe we'll try. Maybe we'll try this. What'd that do for you?
Still looking at your nostrils.
Huh. You really can't see this.
No, I'm just seeing your face, which is fine, but it's like I would love to see the video you're
And you
talking
can't
about.
hear it either?
I can hear it, but
Okay.
no video of it.
Well, we can all hear it, I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's highlighted in red on my screen. Like, it's working. So, here, let's listen for a sec.
To see
Oh, you're recording the call.
And the screen.
It says in the top left, it says Ben is recording the call. So maybe you are seeing something that I'm not. I'm surprised I can't see it.
I'm seeing
Kinda
it all.
sucks.
Just stop it when you have some questions.
were in fact a globe, no matter how large. As you ascended, the horizon would stay fixed and the observer would have to tilt looking down further and further to see it. 3. The natural physics of water is to find and maintain its level. If Earth were a giant sphere tilted, wobbling, and hurtling through infinite space, then truly flat, consistently level surfaces would not exist here. But since Earth is in fact an extended flat plane, this fundamental physical property of fluids finding and remaining level is consistent with experience and common sense. 4. Rivers run down to sea level, finding the easiest course, north, south, east, west, and all other intermediary directions over the Earth at the same time. If Earth were truly a spinning ball, then many of these rivers would be impossibly flowing uphill. For example, the Mississippi, in its 3,000 miles, would have to ascend 11 miles before reaching the Gulf of Mexico. 5. One portion of the Nile River flows for 1,000 miles with a fall of only 1 foot. Parts of the West African Congo, according to the supposed inclination and movement of the ball Earth, would be sometimes running uphill and sometimes down. This would also be the case for the Parana, Paraguay, and other long rivers. 6. If Earth were a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, as NASA and modern astronomy claim, spherical trigonometry dictates the surface of all standing water must curve downward an easily measurable 8 inches per mile multiplied by the square of the distance. This means along a 6-mile channel of standing water, the Earth would dip 6 feet on either end from the central peak. Every time such experiments have been conducted, however, standing water has proven to be perfectly level. 7. Surveyors, engineers, and architects are never required to factor the supposed curvature of the Earth into their projects. Canals, railways, bridges, and tunnels, for example, are always cut and laid horizontally, often over hundreds of miles without any allowance for curvature. 8. The Suez Canal, connecting the Mediterranean with the Red Sea, is 100 miles long without any locks, making the water an uninterrupted continuation of the two seas. When constructed, the Earth's supposed curvature was not taken into account. It was dug along a horizontal datum line, 26 feet below sea level, passing through several lakes from one sea to the other, with the datum line and the water's surface running perfectly parallel over the 100 miles. 9.
That's something, huh?
W. Winkler was published in the Earth Review regarding the Earth's supposed curvature.
He's talking about Fonzarelli now, Henry Winkler. Go ahead.
Here's what the engineer says.
Of many years standing, I saw that this absurd allowance is only permitted in school books. No engineer would dream of allowing anything of the kind. I have projected many miles of railways and many more of canals, and the allowance has not even been thought of, much less allowed for. This allowance for curvature means this, that it is 8 inches for the first mile of a canal and increasing at the ratio by the square of the distance in miles. Thus, a small navigable canal for boats, say 30 miles long, will have, by the above rule, an allowance for curvature of 600 feet. Think of that, and then please credit engineers as not being quite such fools. Nothing of the sort is allowed. We no more think of allowing 600 feet for a line of 30 miles of railway or canal than of wasting our time trying to square the circle. 10. The London and Northwestern Railway forms a straight line 180 miles long between London and Liverpool. The railroad's highest point midway at Birmingham Station is only 240 feet above sea level. If the world were actually a globe, however, curving 8 inches per mile squared, the 180-mile stretch of rail would form an arc with the center point at Birmingham raised over a mile, a full 5,400 feet above London and Liverpool. 11. A surveyor and engineer of 30 years published in the Birmingham Weekly Mercury stated, "I am thoroughly acquainted with the theory and practice of civil engineering. However bigoted some of our professors may be in the theory of surveying, according to the prescribed rules, yet it is well known amongst us that such theoretical measurements are incapable of any practical illustration. All our locomotives are designed to run on what may be regarded as true levels or flats. There are, of course, partial inclines or gradients here and there, but they are always accurately defined and must be carefully traversed. But anything approaching to 8 inches in the mile, increasing as the square of the distance, could not be worked by any engine that was ever yet constructed. Taking one station with another, all over England and Scotland, it may be stated that all the platforms are on the same relative level. The distance between eastern and western coasts of England may be set down as 300 miles. If the prescribed curvature was indeed as represented, the central stations at Rugby or Warwick ought to be close upon 3 miles higher than a cord drawn from the two extremities. If such was the case, there is not a driver or stoker within the kingdom that would be found to take charge of the train. We can only laugh at those of your readers who seriously give us credit for such venturesome exploits as running trains round spherical curves. Horizontal curves on levels are dangerous enough. Vertical curves would be 1,000 times worse, and with our rolling stock constructed as at present, physically impossible. 12. The Manchester Ship Canal Company, published in the Earth Review, stated, "It is customary in railway and canal constructions for all levels to be referred to a datum which is nominally horizontal and is so shown on all sections. It is not the practice in laying out public works to make allowances for the curvature of the earth." 13. In a 19th century French experiment by MMBO and Arago,
I'll be right back. Baby's crying.
reflectors was placed on the summit of Desierto Las Palmas in Spain and able to be seen all the way from Capri on the island of Ibiza. Since the elevation of the 2 points were identical and the distance between covered nearly 100 miles, if the Earth were a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, the light should have been more than 6,600 feet, a mile and a quarter, below the line of sight. 14. The Lieutenant Colonel Portlock experiment used oxyhydrogen Drummond's lights and heliostats to reflect the sun's rays across stations set up across 108 miles.
If you guys are sleeping right now, I understand why.
Actually, a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, Portlock's light should have remained hidden under 1.5 miles of curvature. 15. If the Earth were truly a sphere 25,000 miles in circumference, airplane pilots would have to constantly correct their altitudes downwards so as to not fly straight off into outer space. A pilot wishing to simply maintain their altitude at a typical cruising speed of 500 miles per hour would have to constantly dip their nose downwards and descend 2,777 feet over half a mile every minute. Otherwise, without
that seems extreme.
In 1 hour.
What do we think about that?
I think he's cute. He's a nerd. He's Asperger's. And he brings up a lot of really proper points. Like if you're flying and the Earth is really a sphere, you would have to keep dipping down your nose on the aircraft to stay at a certain level. Like he's got some really good points.
Just imagine this.
But also he sounds insane.
more.
I got to be honest, Ben. He sounds insane.
Of course he sounds
it's the
insane.
type of guy that you meet in the back of a cafe who's asking you for a cigarette butt, and he's just kind of out of his mind, and he's spitting and he's choking, and he's like, this guy's definitely not a person I look up to.
So
but he's got some.
He spits when he talks. Continue.
I'm just saying that, like, there's no way, like, this, to me, this isn't my favorite NASA engineer, but I think it's cute and it's fun. And he had a great point. I remember flying a lot when I was younger, a lot everywhere when I was younger, hundreds of miles in airplanes. And I never really had to adjust the nose downward so that I wouldn't, as he says, fly off into space. Flying off into space wasn't really an issue for us.
And one of my
But if you
pilot
were
friends
on a
talked about landing. He was like, landing, dude, is such a sensitive thing, and it's also counterintuitive the way you have to force the plane down to the earth. He's like, it's a whole process. Learning that is the hardest part of flying. He's like, and there is nothing ever that has anything to do with rotation of the earth ever under any circumstance. No pilot's ever been trained.
The earth is such a vast sphere that
But if
you
it's
don't
spinning 1,000 miles per hour, you would still have to account for it. These
not
numbers,
when you're not when you're in the same atmosphere. It's such a vast sphere that you do have to it almost feels like it's stationary.
you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna call this the Great Flat Earth Debate. We're gonna let him keep talking.
First time, the pilot would find themselves 31.5 miles higher than expected. 16. The experiment known as Airy's failure proved that stars move relative to a stationary Earth and not the other way around. By first filling a telescope with water to slow down
This is where I get really interested in this. The stars will tell you a lot, okay?
the speed of light inside, then calculating the tilt necessary to get the starlight directly down the tube, Airy failed to prove the heliocentric theory, since the starlight was already coming in the correct angle with no change necessary, and instead proved the geocentric model correct. 17. Olber's paradox states that if there were billions of stars, which are suns, the night sky would be filled completely.
This guy'd be great at a party.
O said,
He what?
This guy'd be great. He'd be great to have at a party.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he's the life of every party. I'm sure he does.
Life of every.
I'm sure he does a lot of. Like, he speaks like a bar hopper, doesn't he?
Oh, he'd be great to have over some hors d'oeuvres. He'd be.
This guy drinks O'Doul's. Let's let him finish.
Then the background of the sky would present us a uniform luminosity.
The background of the sky should present us a uniform
background at which would not exist a star. In fact, Olber's paradox is no more a paradox than George Airy's experiment was a failure. Both are actually excellent refutations of the heliocentric spinning ball Earth model. 18.
What?
The Michelson, Morley, and Sagnac experiments attempted to measure the change in speed of light due to Earth's assumed motion through space. After measuring in every possible different direction in various locations, they failed to detect any significant change whatsoever, again proving the stationary geocentric model. 19. Tycho Brahe famously argued against the heliocentric theory in his time, positing that if the Earth revolved around the Sun, the change in relative position of the stars after 6 months' orbital motion could not fail to be seen. He argued that the stars should seem to separate as we approach and come together as we recede. In actual fact, however, after 190 million miles of supposed orbit around the Sun, not a single inch of parallax can be detected in the stars, proving that we have not moved at all. 20. If Earth were truly constantly spinning eastwards at over 1,000 miles per hour, vertically fired cannonballs and other projectiles should fall significantly due west. In actual fact, however, when this has been tested, vertically fired cannonballs shoot upwards an average of 14 seconds ascending, 14 seconds descending, and fall back to the ground no more than 2 feet away from the cannon, often directly back into the muzzle. 21. If the Earth were truly constantly spinning eastward at over 1,000 miles per hour, helicopters and hot air balloons should be able to simply hover over the surface of the Earth and wait for their destinations to come to them. 22.
I do like that point.
Constantly.
There's like one thing that I like there because it's way too high IQ for me. You know, I'm a 30 IQ.
At least, bro.
35 when I'm on Adderall.
I'm gonna have to. I guess I'm gonna have to take care of this baby again and come right back to you.
That's fine.
Sounds
That's
like
cool.
she's having some problems.
All right, we're gonna cut a lot of this out because that guy just rambling on about like his bullshit. We're gonna have to cut. We might keep it. Who cares if somebody wants to?